Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another episode of AskGufish. It's been a little while. You guys had a ton of great questions. I've got some debatably decent answers. Don't forget to join the Discord server. It's where I pull most of the questions from, and the mods have actually just revamped the whole thing, so it's a great time to join. Link in the description. Destroy that like button. Actually really helps out appeasing the unforgiving algorithm gods, and let's jump into your questions. Thoughts on the new Schecter Solo 2 Evil Twin? Holy shit, the amount of people that tagged me when Schecter dropped this. It is quite hot though. Like, okay, when you see it from the front, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. Typical metal single cut, black satin, white binding, black hardware. It's a blacked out metal single cut, whatever. But then flip it over and it's like, holy shit, Schecter brought the hotness. I mean, look at this thing. 7-piece neck through, maple walnut Paduke with carbon fiber reinforcement, swamp ash wings. Everything's been dyed a light gray, both belly and thigh cuts for extra comfort. There's something about neck through guitars, and especially how Schecter does it. They look better on the back than on the front. The last time I said that about the Keith Merrow signature, someone in the comments was like, yeah, I've dated a couple people like that. Relatable content. On the front of the Solo 2 though, yeah, it's understated. It may even be a little cliche, but it's got the right appointments for a modern metal guitar. Tone Pro's hardware, Fishman Fluence modern pickups, direct mounted, no pickup rings here, lumen lace side dots, 24 extra jumbo stainless steel frets, heavy breathing intensifies, and an ebony fingerboard with 3 staple Schecter specs in a compound 12 to 16 inch fingerboard radius, spoke wheel truss rod adjustment, and those evil Roman numeral inlays. Ultra thin C neck shape, which personally I'm not crazy about ultra thin necks, but this looks like a genuine contender to the EC1000 as the go-to modern metal single cut that's got the updated specs and still retains a good amount of that traditional feel and class. It is higher priced than the EC1000S, but remember, neck through is a really high-end spec. It's got the upper fret access, tonal, and neck stability benefits, and it's not cheap to do. Like $12.99 with this inflation, with this supply chain, it's a decent price for the SLS Elite Evil Twin. Either way, it's a great series. It's about time they added a single cut to it. But you know what? That's not the only cool thing that Schecter's been up to. Rob Scallon's been teasing this thing. It's a Schecter 8-string fan fret Rob Scallon signature, presumably. The headstock looks suspiciously, I wonder where I've seen that kind of design before. He's obviously not with Chapman anymore. They originally had those 6 and 8 string signatures, and I actually thought they were kind of ugly, like straight up unfinished IKEA furniture. Really distinctive looking though, in fairness. Like in Guitar Center and stuff, you would immediately see them and know exactly whose signature guitar they were. They also did a 7-string that looked so much better in the black, had a Floyd Rose instead of a hardtail, and it wasn't in production all that long before he announced that that would be the last collaboration with Chapman. He then announced his totally 100% legit Scott Taylor brand, building guitars with no prior experience whatsoever. So anyways, so it seems like he's finally ended up with Schecter, and it makes sense. Prior to Chapman, and I guess Scott Taylor, I remember the first Rob Scallon videos I saw, he was playing 8 and 9 string Schecter Omens, maybe? He had an 8-string in white and then that red and abalone 9-string. You know what I'm talking about. So going back to Schecter, making an 8-string fan fret, it makes sense. At the same time, it is Rob Scallon. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a signature banjo at this point, because why not? Or a signature shovel. Please make the shovel guitar a real thing, Schecter, I beg. No concrete info on anything right now, no pricing info, no specs. If I were a betting person, Rob Scallon's not really a gear guy, so I'd say Schecter Diamond multi-scale pickups, Schecter locking tuners, and proprietary hardware. Ebony fingerboard, neck through, probably retain those specs from the Chapman signature. Multi-scale is more niche, so it is more expensive per unit than a regular scale guitar, right? Because you're not producing as many, it doesn't scale as well. So I'd say it'll probably be, I don't know, $10.99. Pure speculation based on absolutely nothing but somewhat educated guesses. Speaking of signatures though, that Machine Gun Kelly guitar. Personally, I could care less about MGK. Like, I gave his recent album a chance. I love pop punk and I did not particularly care for it, although I do think it's great he's acting as this pop punk gateway for a new massive audience. And regardless what you think of him, that pink telly is hot. I want one. It looks like it would be great for Slipknot riffs. I've also been really wanting to revisit the Wild Audio stuff. The original Odin Grail that I tried, it was, well, it wasn't great. It felt kind of cheap and plasticky, and I've heard they've gotten so much better. And the new Odins now come in these crazy, wild-themed natural tops with these Nordic rune inlays. I love it, and I think the crazy black line designs and dark natural tops hide how wacky the melted Les Paul shape is, or at least much more so than the classic bullseye design and the massive block inlays. And I'm still convinced Schecter will be handling a new dime bag brand when the whole Dean situation gets sorted. But for now, what do you think of the models I listed? Do you want to see demos of them on the channel? Maybe other models? Is what Schecter's doing in 2022 even exciting for you, or nah, should we just stick with Epiphone? Any and all thoughts, leave them down below. Now, while Scott Taylor guitars might not be Rob's greatest endeavor ever, you know what arguably is, though? His insanely fun guitar course that's basically a game, Guitar Quest by Guitario, who just so happened to be the sponsor of today's video. Now listen, I know, practice, it's tough. At least in a way where you're making progress and not just chugging randomly away or playing the same riffs you've been playing for the last 5 years. The key to constantly improving? Structure. And that is where Guitario comes in. They're an amazing online resource with a massive selection of courses and programs and access to real teachers, all designed to help you enjoy the process of becoming a better guitar player. They've formulated a 10-level step-by-step curriculum to keep you focused, constantly improving, and having fun doing it. It's awesome because you're never lost. You've always got that next thing to learn and to build on what you already know in a way that makes sense. And as someone who struggled to learn guitar from individual tabs and random YouTube videos, that structure is really nice. Guitario covers so many aspects, and they've just recently added coaches, including professional guitarists and musicians like Rob Scallon, Yvette Young, Dean Lamb of Archspire, and the ever-wonderful Pete Thorne. So if you want to invest in yourself and start becoming a better guitar player at a great price, check out Guitario, link in the description. And right now they're running an unreal ultimate $1 deal, a single dollar for 30 days of unlimited access to all the lessons, all the coaches. Valentine's Day is approaching. Now's a good time to brush up on those acoustic chops. You know what I'm saying? They're awesome. Clicking the link supports the channel by letting them know that I sent you. While you're doing that, let's get into your next question. Thoughts on Kirk Hammett's purple sparkle flying V? Alright, I'm a little late to this party, but holy f***. So the guys in Metallica like to road test new signatures before they go into production, and Kirk posted this picture to his Instagram from a recent show of him rocking a purple sparkle flying V, which is peak Kirk Hammett. Now, from what I've been told, these are nowhere near from being close to launching, but damn, if this is the theme for the Kirk Hammett USA or Epiphone collections, yes, fucking please. I mean, spec-wise, we can pretty much guess. Standard flying V specs, mahogany body, mahogany neck, looks like a rosewood fingerboard. Interestingly, looks like no bone breakers. The pickups have exposed covers. I don't know, maybe some custom wound high output Gibson pickups, or maybe a 500T. That purple sparkle, man. Body matching headstock, I'm guessing the back and the neck too. Yes, and don't stop at V's. Purple sparkle Les Paul custom. A purple sparkle Les Paul standard, Les Paul studio, all the Les Pauls. And Kirk, I see you with your SG custom, purple sparkle that shit too. I mean, obviously it's a whole collection, and we're definitely getting a greenie first. At this point, that's Kirk's most iconic Gibson, even more so than the blacked out Les Paul Custom. Greenie has so much prestige, besides now being used with world-ending levels of gain with Metallica. It was also used by Peter Green and Gary Moore of Fleetwood Mac. And it just so happens he's got another post on Instagram testing the prototype with Gibson's Cesar, whose last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I butcher it every single time, and at this point it's borderline offensive. But the new prototype, it looks identical to the original. It's the whole Murphy Lab thing, carefully hand-aged, that only people with right-clicking is theft money can buy. So fingers crossed we'll get an Epiphone version soon after that. I doubt though, with how slow everything is to get done these days, that we'll see an Epiphone version anytime this year. Maybe end of the year? Fingers crossed. I wonder what they'll do for the pickups in the Epiphone version though, because in interviews, Kirk even says that the pickups are what gives that guitar a ton of its personality that he paid an outrageous amount of money for. Speaking of the Murphy Lab though, have you guys seen that Mike Ness from Social Distortion has a new signature? It's an aged dual P90 70 style Les Paul Goldtop. Man, I wish Gibson USA did some limited age stuff as well, because I would kill for a Mike Ness model, and 70s inspired stuff is awesome. Personally, I still go back and forth between loving and hating gold tops, but when they're aged, holy do they look cool. You know what? This is just gonna turn into a what is Gibson doing in 2022 video, because we haven't talked about Gibson Epiphone in a while, and they're doing a lot of new releases as well as a lot of leaks. First of all, Jerry Cantrell Epiphone Wino Les Paul Custom, anybody? Probably gonna blur out most of this information because I don't want anyone to get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble, but I am psyched for this. I love Alice in Chains. Jerry Cantrell is an absolute beast. His custom shop Wino that dropped last year was so dope. And it was Murphy Lab, so it was so expensive. So an Epiphone version more of us can afford? Yep. Absolutely, I'm down. Then there's Adam Jones. We've seen a 70s style Les Paul standard from Gibson USA. You know, if you're a fucking pleb and can't afford the $10,000 Murphy Lab version, it'll probably still be quite expensive because, well, it is Adam Jones. And it is a silver burst, which all of a sudden everybody has decided that is their favorite color, including me kind of. I will admit, this is the first new Gibson Les Paul that I am very, very much considering buying. No, I don't have enough Les Pauls, and I don't care that Adam Jones only uses custom shops on stage. Shut up, a Silverburst standard is just cool. I want it, we move. Adam Jones has also been seen playing a V on stage. So along with the Kirk Hammett V, the new Richie Faulkner V, and the entire Mustaine collection, which consists exclusively of Vs, apparently 2022 is the year of the V. Unlike the other ones though, the Adam Jones one is in silver burst, and it also has the incredibly ugly reverse headstock. It's unique, so that's cool, I guess. I'm glad. I think it looks so bad though, because honestly there's so many guitars on my wish list already, including the USA Les Paul. I really don't need more on there. So shout out to Adam Jones for using that ugly headstock. You, sir, are a man of the people. Speaking of more USA Les Pauls though, there's a new Slash model. This one is kind of hidden on Gibson's website, but it's a special limited edition Les Paul standard to coincide with the launch of his new album 4 with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. Only 250 will be made with a special limited edition hard case as well. It's not a custom shop model, so it'll probably be the same price as the rest of the Slash collection, which is now up to $3,000. Holy shit, I hate inflation. Same specs as the Slash collection, but in a translucent cherry color. The 4 decal is a sticker. By the way, it won't come out of the factory stamped like a NASCAR. Just in case you were wondering, it's not a Jared James Nichols Blues Power situation. And it's not the first time Slash has used this translucent cherry color, or at least something similar to it. We've seen it on the Snake Pit and the Rosso Corsa models, and honestly, I think Vermilion Burst looks way better. I don't know, light red Les Pauls, let me know what you think. Actually, quick update on the Adam Jones USA standard. As I was filming this, Rich and IG just sent me a link to this My Les Paul forum post. It seems like they're already shipping, or at least one escaped, because someone managed to pick up one of the USA standards last week. Interesting, the silver looks a little more golden than I'd been expecting. A couple of more interesting points. Back of the headstock is sick. Interesting tuning keys with Grover tuners, and it's a 70s LP, so it does have that volute. Gibson actually has an entire Adam Jones 1979 merch collection, which includes a silver burst hard case, but it looks like the USA standards are actually shipping with the Les Paul Modern hardshell case instead. Something you might not be aware of, there is a huge case shortage right now. Like, it is incredibly difficult to get them made and shipped from China. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a use what we got situation. Allegedly, the forum member bought it for $29.99, so it's the same price as the Slash collection Les Pauls. So a little pricey, and they are going to sell a ton of them. On to the Mustaine collection though. Check out this little leaked photo. Seems like there are a ton of Mustaine models on the way, or at least there were a ton of different prototypes made. So you can see there are Kramer versions of the recently released Gibson USA models in silver and antique natural. I'm gonna guess that the black and red burst ones to the left with dot inlays are Epiphone versions, because it's interesting, they don't have the, I don't know, Dean wing inlays. There's some artificial product differentiation there. And as I said, it's hard to tell which ones are one-off prototypes and which ones are actually going into production. The red burst one is obviously modded since Mustaine is not a Fluence guy, and I hope that black flying V with silver hardware gets released soon, though. That is hot. So those are the leaks and the upcoming stuff, but what have they actually released? Like, what can you actually buy right now? Last year, Epiphone did their first collaboration with the Custom Shop with that 1959 Les Paul Standard. That guitar was awesome. I loved it. Aged gloss finish, Gibson USA pickups, one of my favorite Epiphones ever, and I've played a lot. We were promised more collaborations, and they just recently released their second in the 1961 Les Paul SG Standard. Now wait a second, why does it have Les Paul and SG in the name? Well, I'm so glad you asked. In 1961, the Les Paul as we know it today was discontinued, or I guess placed on indefinite hiatus, replaced with the new quote-unquote Les Paul. The body was thinner, it had two horns, horrendous neck dive, and while it went on to become Gibson's best-selling model ever, Les Paul himself wasn't a fan. He's like, yeah, take my name off this shit, and it became the SG. For sake of clarification though, he actually did like aspects of it, like the upper fret access and the quick neck, but he really didn't like how mobile the neck was compared to a Les Paul. Like, you could bend it a lot easier, it didn't feel as solid, and it also didn't sustain as much as a proper Les Paul, as you might imagine. So the 1961 Les Paul Standard SG reissue has a lot of similar specs to the 1959 Les Paul, aged gloss finish, Gibson USA burst buckers, which are a huge improvement over Epiphone mud buckers, CTS pots, Mallory capacitors. It's also the same price as the 1959 Les Paul Standard, which I don't entirely understand since SGs are normally cheaper. Weird. It's still the Epiphone SG I would probably get though because of the aged gloss finish and the stock burst buckers. And lastly, Joan Jett has a new Epiphone Melody Maker based on her #1 stage guitar. Alright, pause. I'll be real with you for a second. I hate the Melody Maker shape. It is very, very ugly. But that's kind of what makes it a great, punky, power chordy guitar. It's got a lot of attitude. A bad reputation, you might say. It's got a fairly hot 14.5K output Alnico 5 humbucker, single volume CTS pot, a kill switch, and that's it. So punk. 549, and it's got a modified headstock shape as well. It's got like lips or booty cheeks or a part of Gibson's open book headstock design, however you want to look at it. Not much you can really do with the Melody Maker's super ugly headstock, but this is an improvement, I think. Not sure. We move. That's it. That is your SparkNotes review of what Gibson and Epiphone are doing at the start of 2022, and some leaks of what they might be doing further in the year. Kirk Hammett's Purple Sparkle Flying V and Adam Jones' Gibson USA Les Paul Standard steal the show for me. What about you? I know there are going to be a lot of people that are like, oh, Gibson, same stuff, overpriced, and I agree to a degree. In a world where Maybach and Heritage exists, Gibson isn't the best bang for buck new, but they do hold their value, and they do make some really cool stuff. Anyways, let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. Johannes Frey asks, how do you cope with loneliness? Not sure how your life is, but I imagine sitting in your room/office all day long by yourself to create videos/projects gets somewhat lonely. That's a great question, and the honest answer is this job, really a job if you love it, this type of work is perfect for me. Like, I kind of got used to chilling by myself. There were a couple of years in year 9, year 10, what would that be in freedom education? Late middle school, early high school, we lived like an hour away from the school, from my friends, and my mom in particular was quite strict about hanging out with friends. It was more hassle than it was worth sometimes. A lot of the time. This isn't like an oh poor me story or anything, it's just how it was. So I got pretty used to like chilling alone or like with one person, with my brother. Anyways, so that's how I got pretty good at writing decent sounding metal riffs quite quickly, and where my love for video games, especially Halo, came to be. So I don't know if I was always an introvert or I just became one, but I am quite introverted now. Like, I need a lot of alone time to recharge. Not saying I don't like hanging out. I love my friends. I love my family. I've got my core group of people. All I'm saying is that when lockdowns initially started, I'm talking like at the very beginning, it was like, nice, an excuse to stay home, because sometimes I don't want to is not a good enough reason for my extroverted friends to not go on a Friday night rager. And big events like NAMM or Toman's Gearhead University, I love going to those, but they are exhausting for me. I'm also at my most creative and productive at night, like it's 1:30 a.m. when I'm filming this. I love the darkness and the silence, and I don't know, it's just good vibes, man. Corporate environments and politics and I guess the daytime don't suit me at all. So yeah, if you're looking for coping mechanisms, I'm sorry, I can't help, because personally, I don't really feel the loneliness too much. I get carried away with just playing guitar and talking guitar, and Guitar Gear is just so much fun. Having Pringle and Koshi also really helps. But yeah, I have literally no helpful advice because I'm just naturally inclined to spend a lot of time by myself. But for those of you with a soul and do feel loneliness, what are your coping mechanisms? Especially over the last year or 2 or 3, I don't know what is time, but how have you been getting through it? Noah, the Guitar Weeb, asks, as you mentioned in your latest Smash or Pass video, number 2, by the way. I know, I need to get back on that series. I have excuses, which you'll hear in a bit, but anyways. You said that guitar companies only think of modern as metal, chug, / shred machines. How would you want companies to innovate and have modern be less metal centric? Yeah, so this is a very good question, because generally these days guitars fall into one of 2 categories. The first is copies of classic designs from the 1950s, 1960s, or at least as close as you can get without being sued. Or you've got the guitars that have all the modern specs and then super high output pickups meant for metal. There are exceptions, of course, but by and large, most guitars fall firmly into one of those 2. And that's a huge reason as to why I loved the Valiant Jupiter so much. It had a lot of unique features like Duralumin parts, Bell Bronze saddles, but it was also one of the rare times you find something in the middle of the categories. Right, regardless of what you think about artificial aging, let's look past that for just a second. The thing is obviously vintage inspired. The pickups are mellow PAF style humbuckers, but then it's got modern upgrades that don't detract from the vintage feel. For example, the titanium reinforced neck, a more stable neck. I don't think you need to be a metal player to appreciate a more stable guitar. It has a spoke wheel truss rod adjustment system recessed into the fingerboard that is so much better than the super old school system on the Vintera series, for example, where you have to take the entire neck off in order to adjust the truss rod. There is no reason besides tradition to still have that be a thing on any current day production guitar, and I'd argue that's just not a good enough cause. Let's just get rid of that completely, please. It's just entirely impractical. So already that's 2 quality of life improvements that don't change the feel or the sound, right? Because personally, I love stainless steel frets, but I'm not asking for those to be on everything. I'd argue that they have a better feel. Bends are super smooth, but they do have a colder, harsher sound, and that makes very little sense on a 59 Les Paul inspired guitar where you want that fat, warm tone. More stable neck though? Anything that makes a Les Paul more stable is nice. I also think luminlays should be standard. There is not one single instance I can think of where inlays that look normal under daylight conditions and glow for better visibility in low light conditions are anything but beneficial to any guitarist. A more controversial one I'd want to see is more ergonomic neck joints across the board. I think everyone can agree that the old blocky joints just ain't it when it comes to ergonomics. You do get used to it, and on some models it's not bad, like upper fret access is still okay. It's like they were made that way in the 1950s and 1960s out of necessity. It's been 60 years. We have the technology to do better. And yet companies seem very shy about applying these modern ergonomic designs to anything but they're modern metal guitars. Again, there are exceptions, but by and large, that seems to be the rule. Personally, I find it incredibly frustrating. It's so difficult to find a 59 inspired single cut with a set through joint. My options are generally on one side Heritage H150 and on the other side ESP Eclipse. There is very little in between. But I get it, you don't want to change the feel too much. You know, there's some people that have been playing these guitars for decades. There are still solutions though. For example, the Harley Benton SC552 has a great in-between solution for set necks where the block is kind of angled. And Jim Root's fenders have a great solution for bolt-ons where it's been carved away slightly. So you're not losing the core feel, it's just better. Anyways, those are just some of my thoughts because I love my Heritage H150. I love my Maybach Lester, but sometimes it's like, man, some quality of life upgrades, like a set through neck joint would be so nice. But that's just me, I may be in the minority. What do you think? What, if any, quality of life upgrades would you want to see manufacturers make on their vintage inspired instruments now that we do have better technology than we did in the 1950s and 1960s? Let me know what you're thinking down below. Now, since we've reached the end of the video, in case you missed it, since last AskGufish, there's actually been a ton of videos. Let's start with, I actually got to create some music with Matt fucking Hafey. Put his new Fluence pickups into my Hetfieldy Edwards Les Paul, wrote some shamelessly Trivium-inspired riffs, and got the man, the legend himself, to rip a fire solo over it. Easily a massive YouTube highlight for me. Then we checked out phase 1 of ESP's 2022 lineup, over 40 new models, and basically every single one was a win. It's actually insane. I have no idea how they've done it. Then the first unboxing video of the year just so happens to include one of those 2022 LTDs, as well as some much needed camera upgrades. Then I demoed arguably the second best budget single cut, the Harley Benton SC552. The best one is obviously my signature, stay tuned to V2, but the SC552. Beautiful guitar, weird specs though, vintage inspired in so many ways, and then it's got stainless steel frets, all for 350-ish bucks. Not bad value. Reacted to the most ridiculous guitar I've ever seen. Steve Vai's Hydra is peak 2022. You can even buy an NFT of the launch video for a whole ether. Totally not a scam. Then checked out PRS's 2022 lineup. Compared to ESP, PRS is going with short but sweet. And lastly, not only did I get Matt Hafey on the channel, Chris Robertson of Blackstone Cherry was kind enough to join me to lay down an insane chicken pickin' solo for my demo of the PRS SE Starlight. In my opinion, PRS's most underrated model. Links to all of those in the description because there are too many for the cards. Oh, and I actually forgot about one. Fender and Squier have released their 2022 lineup update. It's the Jazzmaster's 60th birthday. It's Squire's 40th birthday. Full lineup breakdown and reaction video on the YouTubes. But for now though, this has turned into a way longer video than I had originally been expecting. If you've made it all the way to the end of the video, you may as well subscribe at this point and hit the bell for notifications. That way YouTube will let you know when I upload a new video. A lot of cool stuff coming up on the channel. You don't want to miss any of it. Social media, merch, and Discord server links are in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I will see you for the next video.